Hey, it's your boy 950 Kev for the 950 Lounge Show with LeBron James in the radio game, the most electrifying man in media today. And I'm 1/5 of the best team in radio. So I'm joined by my brother Rodeo, the funny guy, just the classic man, the cynic, aka Mr. Roper, backstage Ed, and the lovely, super talented Steph Pearl. It's 950 Lounge every day, all day on multiple networks. So take us a listen, let us know what you think. Catch us at www.950lounge.com or my Instagram at 950kev. What's going on, world? It's your boy 950 Kev for the 950 Lounge Show. And this is 950 Presents 950 Extras, the place where you get to see people that are changing your world today. Today's guest is a special young lady I met while I was in LA. She's got a fantastic video game that's touching on slavery in a time where people are trying to whitewash slavery. She's bringing it to the forefront. Ladies and gentlemen, CEO and founder of Mountain Gaming, Miss Aniya Watkins. Did I say that right now?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure. Get the names right, Kev. Get the names right. Good morning to you. How's everything going?
Good morning. I'm doing good. How are you?
I can't complain. Any day above dirt is a blessed day. It's truly a
Hey.
blessed day. So let's get into it. You're from Chicago, born and raised in the Chi, the oldest of
Mhm.
six. And the more I get to know you, obviously we spoke and we met. I get this motherly appeal about you that you want to hug everybody and tell
Yeah.
everybody it's going to be all right. Talk about growing up in the Chi and growing up the oldest of six siblings.
Yeah. So, I grew up in like the south suburbs of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
My family, they had a record shop that was on the south side of Chicago, really in like the heart of Terrortown.
Mm.
So it's on 79th and Essex. And I watched, my grandparents be entrepreneurs. Um, and my mom was an entrepreneur as
Mm.
well. So I had to take care of my siblings. Like the family was working. Like
Right.
um I have like you said, five younger siblings. So I am kind of like a second mom to
Mm-hmm.
everybody. I'm the oldest girl in my family. So I grew up with mostly boys, like
Okay.
all boys and brothers. And they never wanted to like I don't know, like do girl stuff. So I had to do like boy stuff. So I
So would
wasn't
that
at
mean playing football, acting like you was Michael Jordan on the court? I mean, was that all that
Mhm.
in place? Fighting for the last piece of good food on the table?
Yep. I grew up like a little boy, uh, fighting over food.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Definitely playing the video game. Like that was one of the only things that I was like kind of good at.
Okay.
Like it definitely had me when it came to like athletics, like basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I get out there and play with them a little bit, but like my time to shine and really bond with them was playing the game. So yeah, I feel like growing up in Chicago, a lot of things that I thought was normal wasn't normal. So like gun violence as an example, just like gang affiliation. Like there was a lot of things that I thought was normal that wasn't. And it wasn't until I became like, a young adult did I start seeing those things as kind of like um the things that would create trauma,
Mm.
like real PTSD, like mental health
Right.
issues, because like the environment is one that kind of like encourages drug use and violence. And I think it didn't really foster like community,
Yeah.
but games was the one thing that I did see even growing up was something that would bring people together, like playing a video game or playing
Mm-hmm.
online. Like it was one of the only things that I really saw like foster community. Yeah.
Now, when you mention that, and again, I mean, you're talking some heavy things because they equate that to the same thing people come back from war with, trauma,
Mhm.
and trying to get back in the community and just live normal. So, from a video game perspective, was it an escape from the outer atrocities, or was it a situation where when you played the games, you brought people in? Um, where it became a situation where, hey, let's just play games and we don't have to be outside. We don't have to be in the streets. We can, be in a safe haven, but yet have our own community. Kind of dive into that for me.
Yeah, I think for us um it was safe to stay in the house and play the game.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
can't really go outside. I was very, even though I was like in the heart of the hood,
Yeah.
my family was very protective over me. Like since I was the only girl, I couldn't go outside.
Yeah.
um, I could stay right on that one block where they could see me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like for me, it was
445, they calling your name, huh?
mhm, they can't see me, I'm in trouble.
Hmm.
So for me it was really just a matter of safety, like
Yeah.
staying inside and being able to do stuff
Yeah.
with them.
Now, when you're playing video games as a kid, and like I said, I played Madden, right? I'm a big sports guy, so the sports games, putting Mike Tyson punch out. I know some of these might be older, but from a standpoint, I was big into the sports games. What were some of the games that at that time in your life, really like drew you and model to the lady and the woman you become today?
Definitely Mortal Kombat.
Okay, okay.
um, Mortal Kombat, 007, and then like Diddy Kong Racing, like the
So action
Mario
stuff.
racing game. Yeah.
Okay.
Stuff that I didn't need um to know about, like sports. Like I didn't have to know about sports to be good at those games. Like that was the only time I didn't have to use sliders to play.
Exactly. So again, we're talking to Anaya Cherie Watkins. I'm gonna make sure I get that name right because she would correct me. Founder and CEO of Mountain Gaming. So as you're going through your youth and you're playing games and stuff like that, obviously, uh, high school, went to college, went to UIC, University of Illinois Chicago, um,
Mhm,
and you went for psychology and Black studies. So was that
mhm,
something in the home again, even through tough challenges, you still had the family concept, I think, which in my opinion gets through anything in any
mhm.
setup. Was Black communication, Black history, knowing where you come from, was those things that was etched in your head into your family's conversation growing up and maybe led you to take Black studies, or was it another reason why you chose that major?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question.
This is what I do.
So pretty much it was like what led me to just be interested in Black studies was one, my father, he was in prison when I was a kid. He went to prison when I was really young. And so most of my childhood, the relationship that I had with my dad was like prison visits,
Yeah.
phone calls, letters, things like that. And then there was this incident where this I was going to a predominantly Black school at the time,
Hmm.
and this little boy was gonna mace me because I did not want to be his girlfriend.
Wow.
And my mom was like, absolutely not. So she like moved us super far to go to schools in the Manuka school district. So I went from going to,
So for those
being
who
in a
don't know that, give us I can almost assume what that is, and I'm sure my listening base can, but just for those, kind of explain what the Manuka School District is.
Yes, so it is a predominantly white school
Okay.
district. Our mascot was Indian,
Mm,
a Native American, but we were Manuka Indians.
yeah.
We had like a pep rally in high school, and they had a dummy, like a doll with a rope around his neck and they drug it across the gymnasium. There was like a trend going around in the school where they were doing blackface.
Mm.
They there's a student, and I have like a whole little collage of it because it like really was like, this is why this is important. There's a student who was like holding a whiteboard over his head that said lynch the niggers in class.
Wow.
So that's Manuka School District in a nutshell.
Right.
Um, I was actually always racially profiled, even as a student. Like I had a teacher who she failed me every chance she could, until my mom like took it to the superintendent because she was just failing me just cause. And they were like, if you have any more problems, like let us know.
Yeah.
So I was exposed very early to racial injustice, like whether it was seeing my father be in prison
Yeah.
and then being in a predominantly white school district where, you know, I'm one of maybe 5 Black kids in the whole school. And I have teachers that are just prejudiced. I had a teacher tell me that my essay was too eloquent and demanded to know who wrote it for me and made me rewrite it because she didn't believe that I wrote it.
Wow.
I would have teachers who, the only time I ever got written up in high school was for being insubordinate.
Yeah.
Because they demanded that I change my clothes. I had like leggings and like a sweater on, and they told me to change. And I was like, well, if I got to change, everybody got to change because I'm not doing anything that no one else is doing.
Right.
And they were like, I was like, call my mama. And they were like, well, if I call your mom, you know, if I was your mom, I'd tell you to go back to class. I was like, well, I'm glad you're not my mama. So my mom, she came and got me from school because I was always, you know, racially targeted. So growing up in that environment where I saw literally, you know, I was in a white school district Monday through Friday, and then I was in a hood on the weekends.
Yeah.
It was very obvious to me that there was something, there was a disconnect, there was a difference.
Right.
We were always pulled over in white neighborhoods. And so even with my stepfather, I saw him constantly being arrested in white neighborhoods. And one police officer, I was like, you know, why are you taking my dad to jail? And they were like, we did any, mini, miny, mo, and y'all were unlucky. So
Mm.
I had this fire in me that was just constantly like frustrated or angry at the injustice that I was facing.
Right.
Just for my mom to want us to have a better education, to be in a better school district. So by the time I got to college, and I almost didn't go to college. I almost became like a product of my environment. I
Right.
had stopped going to school. I was like, at this time, I had just been diagnosed with anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that a lot of, especially in the Black community, we don't go to psychiatrists to get a diagnosis because it's something that we don't value.
Yeah.
Or we feel like, you know, like that's not for us. Like, but without having that diagnosis, nothing made sense. Like I was just kind of like living in trauma.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I was like, I'm not going to school. I'm done. And yeah, I was like a juvenile delinquent.
And it's crazy because, again, not to put your age out, but you're not 80 years old, right? So
Mhm.
this is a situation where we're talking about within the 2000s. We're talking about not that long ago. So when people start to break down, like, oh wow, like they hear the stories of African American plight, and they go, oh well, yeah, that's like in the when when Leave It to Beaver was on TV. No, this is recent. Did
Mhm.
you feel from, even though mom, you had got into a situation and mom did this for you, and I know you love your mother, did you feel a little like, why did you put me here? Like maybe like sometimes in a way, like when we're in environments that we're comfortable or we know and we just know how to maneuver, just like when you was younger and you played the video games to stay away from the drama, even though the guy wanted to, went about it the wrong way, you probably knew how to finesse that easier than a teacher, or the trauma of watching people have laughter on something that is so insensitive. How did you deal with that at home with mom? Was it a time, and again, like I said, you mentioned you kind of became didn't want to go to school, but talk about that. I know we talked in college, but then you done brought this up, so we got to keep it going. So how do you deal with that internally? Did you become resentful at home?
So that my mom was pretty much like a single parent, because my father was in prison, so she wasn't home. She
Right.
wasn't home to deal with my frustrations. She definitely always advocated for me. She always advocated for me, and um reminding me of the reason why. Like, I would rather you deal with the adversity that you're experiencing in this environment than to worry about your safety, like going to school.
Right.
So I always had, I could appreciate the reason why, but it kind of like led me to have internal conflict around who I was as a person.
Right.
Because on one hand, in the white schools, I was ghetto. Like, let them tell it, I was ghetto. It felt like being like an exhibit. Like, can I touch your hair? Do you really like chicken? Like, so I felt like stereotypes were being imposed upon me, so it made me angry. I was very mean. Like, if you ask people that I went to high school with, like, I was probably nice to 2 or 3 people, but to everybody else I was very mean, probably very
You've had a
snappy.
show, and rightfully so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was hyper vigilant. It gave me, I think it was one of the things that actually contributed to my anxiety, because I was always waiting for, whether it be a teacher or a student, to like pick on me or offend me or
Right.
make me, I thought until I went to college that being told that I was pretty for a Black girl was a compliment. I really did. And I understood, to have people explain to me why I was pretty for a Black girl, and for it to have been something that I accepted and didn't see as an insult. Like, there was a lot of like internal conflict that I didn't really address. And at times I was frustrated with the environment. I was never upset with my mom, because I knew that she was doing it for all of the right
Right.
reasons.
Right.
But I did feel like my social life took a toll. And even with my brothers, like, they played basketball, it affected them as far as like their basketball careers, because you have, prejudiced coaches that, have their own agendas. So I know for my brothers, they had a lot more resentment towards the environment, because it was, blatant with the athletic departments. And for me, it was more so like my social life, that I had the most, that I struggled the most with.
Right. So pretty much, we're gonna take a quick break, but I want to come
Mhm.
back, and I want to get back onto the college thing, because you did mention that it was a moment where you wasn't gonna go to college, or there was some crossroads. We're gonna find out how you got back on track and how you continued this journey. Very interesting conversation, Miss Aniya Watkins. Again, we'll take a quick break. Keep it moving. 950 extras. Come on back.
I'm a New Yorker, born and bred. I mean, everything that New York has to offer really is a part of me. The hustle, the bustle, the ambition. That's what I infuse in my customers every day, helping them to feel comfortable in their clothing and look elegant no matter what neighborhood they travel in. When a customer puts on a Fear God custom suit for the first time, their smile is very contagious. They're standing in the mirror, and they know that they look good. They're more confident. They see the fit, the fabric, the color is just perfect for them. Honestly, that's my favorite part of being a clothier. I get asked all the time, well, what is a clothier? The clothier has been around for a long time. It dates back to the 19th century. Men would make private appointments with their tailors and look at the latest fabrics and create a custom wardrobe. Clothiers today carry on that exact same tradition. We show up to your home, your office, tape in hand, fabric books, and we're ready to help you create that one-of-a-kind custom wardrobe that you can be proud of from season to season. The right fit is going to give you a confidence you've never experienced before. But more importantly, you're going to enjoy wearing your clothes. My expertise really lies in that ability to measure my customers with precision and knowing them, knowing what's going to really look best on them. What color is going to complement their complexion, their hair color, eye color? What can I put together that's going to make them exude confidence because of their wardrobe? It's really being a full-time consultant, whether they're clothes need dry cleaning, repairing buttonholes, and replacing their socks for them. That's what you get with Fiergall Custom Clothiers. It's one thing to live life. I want my customers to live life stylishly.
We're back on the ride. 950 Extras, 950 Kev. Again, 950 Extras brought to you by the great show, 950 Lounge, hosted by yours truly and the best team in radio. And we're here today. Our special guest is Miss Aniya Watkins, CEO, founder, Mountain Gaming. And after the first break, we were talking about some of the issues and traumas you were going through in high school, and then 5 days, and where like people just use you as like an exhibit, then going back to a community that necessarily you was physically threatened, but that may be mentally comfortable. Talk about now. We wanted to get into the college situation where you was kind of at a crossroads where you even wasn't even gonna go to school. Kind of dive into that for us.
Yeah. I was a juvenile delinquent. Like my mom told me, like, years after the fact, that at that point in my life, I was maybe 16, 17, that she had really given up on me. She didn't think that I was going to do anything, because that was what I was doing. I was friends with all the drug dealers, all those scammers. Like, that was
Now, was that a base result from what was going on in the Caucasian school district, that when you came back on the weekends, it's like you had to let that out? This was the easiest way to let that out.
Yeah, it was more normal for me.
Right.
Like, it was definitely more comfortable for me. These were people that I could relate to. Like, it felt like home. It felt like community. Like it felt like family. So
yeah,
definitely I poured more into those relationships because of the relationships that I had, being in a white community.
Yeah.
So by the time I was like, I'm not going to school, I like moved to the south suburbs with my grandma. Everybody in Chicago love their grandma. Grandma house is always
big mama, huh?
So I had went back with my grandma.
Yeah.
And I was just doing everything I wasn't supposed to do. And I got into a car accident and had to go back to Manuka, because my mom was like, nope, now you got to come home. You out there wilding. Totaled my car. And I had a moment with God where it was like, if you do your part, I'll do mine. But like, I have great things for you. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to just do what I got to do. So I ended up going back to Manuka to graduate. Right. And I had only applied to one school, barely made the deadline, and like went to UIC. I ended up graduating with cum laude honors from Honors College as the executive vice president of the National Society of Collegiate Scholars. But just, I never would have saw my life becoming what it was. But when backing up, when I did first sit in my freshman class in college, my first Black Studies class, I was hot. I was mad. My face was red, because I was like, so they just weren't going to tell us this, like they just weren't going to teach us anything about this. I was being exposed to Black history for the very first time. And it was just me trying to like, pick an elective to meet that minimum course requirement. But to see that I almost didn't go to college, and had I not gone, I would never know this. And being the first person in my family to go to college, I thought about everybody else that doesn't know what I'm learning, because I'm the first person to be here.
Yeah, only thing they teach us in school is Crispus Attucks and Martin Luther King. They don't even really talk about Malcolm X in schools. But I want to go back a little bit because you glanced
Yeah.
over it quick. You
Yeah.
mentioned that you had a conversation with God, right? So I'm
Mhm.
assuming religion was big in your home. Was that something you got from mom, from grandma? Was it something that, even through all this trauma you was going through, adversity, that you knew that somebody had your back above?
Yeah. So my grandmother, she was a preacher's kid.
Okay.
And
Same me and
because
my mother's like, I'm like that. My mother. Go ahead though.
okay, cool,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
cool.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, my grandma, she was a preacher's kid, and because she grew up in the church,
Yeah.
she didn't make us grow up in the church.
Right.
Like we had church at home. We did, Bible study and prayer as a family. Like my spiritual upbringing was, I would say, pretty untraditional in the sense that I didn't really go to a church, but it was really about my individual relationship with God and knowing him on a personal level. So as a kid, I was always very like spiritually sensitive. So I was always the one crying. I was always the one like, will you anoint me? Will you pray for me?
They had a lot of olive
And
oil in your house too, huh?
mhm, a whole lot,
Uh-huh.
absolutely. All of the door entrances look oily.
Uh, I know the feeling. I know the feeling. So from that standpoint, again, through your darkest time, you knew who to turn to, and then you get to UIC, and you're having this class, and it made, like you mentioned, it made you angry and frustrated that for the first time in my life, I'm hearing about this stuff that you know nobody cared to share. Um, Talk about that experience, and then talk about how that groomed you to your major, because that's when we started out before. Let's bring it in with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in that class, it was like you said, really where I became passionate about Black studies, but a lot of it was me trying to understand me,
Yeah.
like understanding my family, understanding the world around me, because like we talked about, I saw two different worlds.
Yeah.
I saw a world, in the heart of Chicago, with predominantly, I mean, it's an urban area, it's Black people. I don't think I ever saw a white person. If I'm being honest, like in
Mm-hmm.
Terratown on
Right.
79th and Essex versus, Manuka.
Yeah.
So I saw two different worlds, and I just wanted to understand, like, why people were the way they were, why they thought the way they did, why they behaved the way that they did.
Right.
And, as a Black person, what it there's so much that I knew that I didn't know. So I just wanted to know anything.
Yeah.
And
Searching
my
for
father,
knowledge.
exactly.
Yeah.
And really trying to understand, my family and how we even got to the point where we were. Like my granny, my great grandma, she also like played a huge part in raising me, but she was born on a plantation.
Right.
And so it was like there was so much that I didn't know. And especially with my father being in prison, I watched him go in one person and come out a totally different person.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to understand why. So
Yeah.
my deciding to study psychology and Black studies was really me searching for like my truth and understanding the people around me, myself, how we got to be where we were.
Right. No doubt. Again, we're talking to super talented Miss Aniya Cherie Watkins. We're gonna get this right. Again, CEO and founder of Mountain Game, and like for most people going to college, right? And I even share my experience. It's like, okay, you're going to school because you have an end game, and you really say, okay, I just want to get to where I'm going, and college is just a stop that you got to do, right? Or they tell us that we got to do, right? In your case, it was finding, who you really were. It
Mhm.
seemed like you was kind of like in this identity crisis of mental, physical, spiritual. Like, what am I? Like, I get told this by one group, I get told this by another. Even like as probably and as a Black person, you probably, because you were at the school, people thought you was different and special when really you was going through hell. Now you're in college and that kind of becomes more of a smorgasbord of different people, and you find this opportunity. Did after leaving UIC, that you kind of feel like you was on steady footing with yourself, or was it still a moment or a piece of you that felt like I still don't have a clue?
Yeah, I felt a lot more secure in myself. I felt a lot more secure in everything that I was as a Black person because I I knew where I came from at that point. I didn't see Black people as woe is me. Like,
Yeah.
I saw not just the struggles that Black people went through, but the resilience, like the constant fight for civil rights. And I saw the perseverance and the heart of who we were as a people.
Yeah.
And I understood the psychology behind it. I understood psychology to really have an understanding of why I was the way that I was, like having what they call complex PTSD, where there isn't like a single event that caused you to have PTSD, but a bunch of different
Medley,
things.
yes. Yeah.
Exactly. So understanding, PTSD, anxiety, depression, ADHD, and understanding how history also influenced the mental health illnesses that I was dealing with today. So I felt a lot more confident and secure in who I was leaving college, but I did feel um like there was how do I put this? The crisis that I experienced leaving UIC was more so, how do I teach my peers? Like, how do I teach the people around me?
Right.
Because my capstone, I had conducted a research study with 400 Black young adults that participated.
Okay. Good.
And
That's
I
a
was,
good case study amount.
yeah, I thought so too. I was like, I'm doing this for us.
Right.
Like, I was researching how the media affected the romantic relationships of Black young adults.
Yeah.
And so I was like, it affects me. I know it affects me because the songs I listen to are all sad. We always talking about how like men are trash and they are always cheating. So I'm like, I'm clearly not the only person dealing with this. And when I say, Kev, no people came to my live stream to discuss the findings of my study. And I was like shook to my core because I was like, there is a disconnect between the world of academics and the average Black person that I know.
Right.
And when we look at like how science and medicine and technology affect us, my favorite quote is by Frances Beale. She's a Black feminist and social activist. And she said that capitalism and racism have attempted in many devious ways to destroy Black humanity. And when I looked at my research findings and no one cared, I was like, this is capitalism. Like capitalism and racism can conduct research experiments on us and we don't even care to know what they're doing with it.
Yeah. Because, it's crazy you say that, because I think, and it goes back to what Pavlov's dog conditioning. We're so conditioned to the BS, right? That we eat, like, is things happen in our world. Now I know we're here for mountain game and stuff, but it's things happening in our world that we know it's happening. We got technology, we got chat rooms, we got all these things. We know it's happening, but we're so caught up on the numbness of what the Cardi B's and all these other people do. And I'm not knocking that, but they're changing laws right in front of our face. And we'll get into a little bit later on with mountain gaming and why I think it's so important that you're doing what you're doing. Look what's happening in Florida. It's a guy, the governor of Florida is running for president, right? And he's putting out all these claims. They're doing things in the state of Tennessee. They're doing things in different states that are hurting us to vote, hurting us to make decisions. They're changing things in Supreme Court right in front of our face. And it's like, I had this conversation a lot with a lot of people who look like me and you. I'm like, I don't want to talk about the Kardashians. I don't want to have that conversation. It's okay to have some fun. I'm a sports fan, but let's keep it real to a point that what's going to affect us, our children, our children's children. What's the next layer? Because if you don't, you can't get mad if somebody's telling you about yourself right in your face and you close your eyes and ears to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think again, sometimes this is planned. I call it the numbness or the inebriation of our society just to keep us numb, smiling, look good and pretty, but yet have nothing of substance. And that is mental and physical, because a lot of us, and again, growing up in Chicago, I'm sure I'm from New York. A lot of people I know, they got $1 million and got a 300 credit score and living at home with mama and barely, maybe even have their own room. But when they walk out the door, it's Hollywood, And I think that mentality, that slave mentality that has transformed to the 21st century is still real and is still alive.
Yeah, absolutely.
No doubt. So getting back on you leave UIC and you go to the city of Troy, USC. The Trojans. Now USC is a much bigger school than University of Illinois Chicago. SC is kind of a weird setup, and you tell me because you went there. It's in the heart of South Central, but yet it's a private PWI. Talk about that now with all the things that you have been going through. High school, bouncing back in the neighborhood, UII finding, the educational component that you feel you was neglected from. Now going to this big university in South Central, but yet is in their walls doesn't represent South Central. Talk about that change and that growth in your education and personal development.
Yes. Ooh, okay. So
you got to set up on the seat for that one. Okay.
Yeah. So my master's degree is in integrated design, business, and technology. So this program, it was actually like founded by Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre.
Okay. Yep.
And it's a virtual program. So most times if I was on campus, it's because I wanted to be, but I didn't have to be.
Okay.
But in the classes, it was sometimes it was me and maybe one other Black student.
Right.
So it was diverse in that you would see other races and genders represented, but there wasn't a whole bunch of Black students.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. Now that I think about it, I don't think I had any professor that was Black in my program. I haven't had a Black professor in this program at all.
That's kind of crazy when you think, that the author of the program is Dr. Dre, right? Yeah. Straight out of Compton, Dr. Dre. But go ahead.
Yeah. So oftentimes, we're discussing technology, creative technologies, new technology, how to create technology. And I was always the one that was like, hey, that's kind of racist. But
don't you go there.
It's like, but it was crazy to me that it's so innocent. Like it's not intentional that technology is racist, but it was in this grad program that I realized the importance of representation, because most times I was the only person as a Black woman speaking up to talk about how this affects Black people. Yeah. So I was in one class called Applied Creative Technology, and we were learning about artificial intelligence and machine learning, and we were testing out this kind of like this AI tool. And it was, you could change genes on people. So you upload a picture and you could change genes to make them look more Asian, more Native American. And then there were characteristics that you could change. And this is where it got interesting, because things like pitch and loudness. So if you increase the pitch to like the highest that it could go, it made you look like a distorted monkey figure. And if you decreased it all the way to 0, it turned you into a white woman.
Yeah.
So I brought this up in class, like, you know, this is what racism in technology looks like. And my professor's like, and, you know, in all of the times that I've taught this class, no one has ever brought that up, or, you know, this is the first time that it's being brought to my attention. So to answer your question, like being in this university, it was a matter of like, you know, it felt like, you know, I'm in a prestigious, you know, university, but there's also a disconnect between, you know, the curriculum that we're learning and how it actually affects Black people. Like the experts in this field, they do kind of have a blind spot when it comes to Black people or people of color and how things affect us. So representation definitely matters. And it was good that there were at times I did have another Black person in the class, but if you don't have someone who's looking for, you know, specifically how these things affect Black people, I think that it can always be oversight.
Wow, incredible. So we're gonna take a quick break, and I really want to get on mountain game. And you like I told you, you have a lot of layers, but I want to get on the game, and also on Batty Nerd, which I find very interesting. I want to learn a little bit more about that. So we're gonna take a quick break and come back with the deep Miss Aniya Watkins, founder of Mountain Gaming. We'll take a quick break. Come on back. It's 950 Extras. Don't go nowhere. We're back on the Ride 950 Lounge, having a very deep conversation with the founder of Mountain Gaming, Miss Aniya Watkins. Again, I'm gonna be saying that in my sleep. I'm like, who's that? But talking so many things, and obviously, just through your educational journey, you eventually decide to start Mountain Gaming. And I think, again, you know, if anybody's listening to this and watching this interview, it seems like this is your perfect career choice when you really think about just what you've gone through as an adolescent, as a young adult. Mountain Gaming was meant for you to create. Talk about how that got started.
Yeah, so it was really a combination of trying to address the fact that no one read my research paper.
Right. Going back to that. Yes.
Yeah. So even after I graduated, I was like, I'm not letting this go. Like I couldn't let it go. Even my cousins, my brothers, like they weren't reading my paper. They weren't reading my presentation. So I was still looking for a way to communicate, you know, my research.
Did the ones closest to you ever tell you why they weren't interested?
They just don't read for fun. Like it
But
was
even with somebody like this is family, something obviously I'm sure you mentioned more than one time, and they still didn't read it. Did you ever think like if I was doing something salacious, they probably would have a comment about it, but why not this? Did that ever cross your mind? Just for the ones that are closest to you, I mean.
Yes, absolutely. It used to hurt my feelings, if I'm being honest, until I realized like I had to meet them where they were with empathy and understand that it wasn't personal. It was the conversations that I did have, it was like what you're talking about is heavy.
Yeah.
It's heavy and it's a lot. And when I do get a second in my life to sit down and take a break, that's not what I want to, you know, consume. Like I want to, you know, do something that's like, you know, fun or, you know, it's not draining, but these were heavy topics.
Being Black can be exhausting. Yeah. No doubt.
Mhm. And even with like my cousins and my brothers, it was like they were like, you use words and no one knows what you're talking about. Like you're just saying stuff and you're showing us charts and everything, but like I don't know what you're talking about. And so it was like I realized that I was speaking a totally different language. You know, I was a scholar. My education taught me how to communicate to scholars and professors and department heads, but not the average person, not the average person.
Did that, not to cut you off, did that kind of bother you? Because like Pete, we're told, right? And I've had this through my educational journey, like when I look around some of the places I've been, employed by, and you look around and there's not a lot of people like you. Now, there's two ways to take it. One, like, why is it not more me? Or two, I'm special. Now, there's people who look at it from both ends of the spectrum. I looked at it from where's where's the others like me? I can't be alone in this journey. And then I know people, professionals, guys and girls, I know that feel like, well, I'm the OJ, like I'm the special one. Did you have maybe animosity from where they tell you I just didn't want to read it because oh well, she's the educated one, or is it a situation where like you just were trying so hard to relate to them and come down and let them notice it's for our betterment, for not just me, for all of us, and it's just a situation where it just wouldn't resonate?
Yeah, it wouldn't resonate. And I think that sometimes they would just ignore me. And I think that it comes from, as people, we don't like to feel inadequate. We
Yeah.
don't like to feel like, we're less than. So I think that at times when someone's talking to you and it's not resonating, it's easier to just check out because there's nothing,
Charlie Brown.
and
Yeah, yep.
exactly that.
Yeah, no doubt. So obviously the mountain gaming, because you still had this hair that you had to get rid of. So with that being the backdrop, how did the pieces come in play to start this company?
Yeah. So I started like examining my target audience, like rather than trying to force something to work that wasn't working. I could have the best presentation in the whole wide world, but it wasn't working.
Yeah.
And so I just kept having to pivot. Like my family group chat with like my cousins and my brothers, they have been so integral in where mountain gaming became, because they were like my first guinea pigs. I'm like, all right, so if you don't like the paper, do you like this? What about this? What about this?
Right.
So it went from me really looking at my target audience and taking the personal out of it and being like, all right, well, if I look at them like a subject, what are the things that they like? What are the things that interest them? Like, okay, sports, video games, social media, music. And so it was like, well, of these things, what can I use to teach them?
Yeah.
Because we kind of talked about this earlier with me being the oldest. I'm always trying to like teach somebody something. Like,
Right.
And so it was, all right, a game. I could use a game to teach you all. And it started off as like, okay, we could do like a family reunion, Juneteenth type of game. And then I was like, all right, it's kind of too hard to be an event planner and get all that together. So I just kept pivoting. I went from it being an event to like, all right, it's a board game.
Yeah.
And what I realized with a board game was that they don't even play board games. I'm like, how many times have we sat and played a board game? Like, I don't think this is gonna be it. It became too complicated to try to like put what I was trying to explain into a game. So it was like, all right, well, maybe board game's not it. And I had thought about a video game, but it was I don't know. I was like, that's not possible. I just didn't think it was possible. And I really had like confirmation when I always have moments with God because I'll be crying. If
Yeah.
it's one thing I do is cry to God, like I want to do something. I
Uh-huh.
was like, I need to do something about this. Like I really cared about the disconnect between academics and Black people. And
Right.
God was like, you can create games. Like you can create a video game.
Right.
And then I was crying because I was like, but it's so expensive. Like it's millions and millions of dollars. And so that was kind of the beginning. Then it was the event in the board game because I was trying to figure out a cheaper way to do it. Like,
Right.
and I had one professor at USC tell me, take money out the equation. Take money out the equation because there's money out there. And if you could do this and money wasn't a factor, how would you do it?
Right.
And that was the game changer for me. That was when I really like decided that I could create a video game company. And it started off as a video game about aliens. I was like, so these aliens came and they were going to if we didn't complete the missions, we were gonna have to give up deodorant, fried chicken, and Beyonce. And
what was this made on Soul Plane? I mean, where you get this, that's woo. Okay, that's a little to digest, but that'll catch somebody's attention.
right? Oh, and I really liked that game, but then I was like, maybe that's not the best first game because I kind of want people to take me seriously, and
Yeah.
they lose like the educational component. I realized, like, I have to trick people into learning. Like,
Yeah.
I can't sell it as an educational game.
Right.
Um, and so from the Alien game, I I landed on kind of going through different eras in history. And so it was like for the Black history component of it, it was like, all right, it'll be a game, but then it was like it couldn't just be a game. Like I had to define what my mission in all of this was, and it was really to create a series of positive psychological interventions that would benefit humanity in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
So it I had to think about, how does this game affect people psychologically, and how do I make sure that it's beneficial? So I took there's a self-determination theory that essentially there's three basic human needs, like universal psychological needs, that if they aren't met, it affects your intrinsic motivation.
Right.
So like, even if you want to like grow up and be something or whatever, and one of them is autonomy. So I realized that there's a lack of autonomy in how we deal with racism and oppression in America.
Mm-hmm.
Like when George Floyd happened, and I watched the video, I was like, I wish I could help him. Like I wish that I could have pushed them off of him, and I wish I could have done this and I could have helped. And it's like we can't do that in the real world without putting our own lives at risk.
Right.
But in a game environment, you can.
This is kind of your way of pushing those officers off of George Floyd.
Exactly. And to be able to meet violence with violence in a safe space.
Yeah.
Because there is no place for us to do that. There is no, we can't be our own heroes or protectors without there being consequences. Like even from the civil rights era, like you can't even march because they're gonna spray you with water hose and throw you in jail. But like in a game environment, when you take out the consequences of your actions, you give people the opportunity to really do what they wanted to do in the first place.
Right.
Like that's rebel against oppression, violence, and racism. Right. And so I kind of took all of those things together to really like map out these different components of the game. So whatever the game development would be, it had to fall under these certain principles. as far as like psychology theories and how to make sure that it's going to benefit people. And then the Black history aspect of it, I did a lot of research. I keep all my notes from undergrad. Like I paid for those lessons.
They ain't going nowhere.
Oh, I still review them. So it was
Mhm.
like, which part of my studies do I want to be in this game?
Right.
Even if it's not blatant, like even if I'm not teaching a lesson, I can still teach. Like it can still be the environment. In the game, the characters are based off of real people. I
Right.
have, oh, it's actually right here. I have this book.
Blend it
Oh,
out a little bit because your screen. That's okay. We'll
there we
make sure
go.
to add it when we'll make sure to add it in the book. I mean, add
Yeah.
the image. Hmm.
Okay. I'll send you a picture.
Yeah.
But it's first person narratives of escapes to freedom to the north. So I took this book and I read it and I was like, these are the people that no one knows about. Like no one knows who these people are. And I want to be able to kind of tell their stories and show their journey to freedom.
Yeah.
So I feel like I kind of like went on a tangent and didn't answer your question.
That's okay. That's okay. But but again, that's part of the evolution of what you've done. Because I gotta believe as you're doing this game and while you're bringing sleek precision, I'm sure the emotions of that 10-year-old girl having to go to the preteen and had to go to suburbs and the things you learned in UIC that angered you that you didn't know before and the things at SC that were done with AI. I'm sure all that started to pour out as you did this game. So with that being said, a lot of people play video games. What would you tell somebody of a different ethnicity on playing Insubordinate Time Rebel? That's the game that we're talking about by Mountain Game. That's your first game, correct?
Yes.
Right. So what would you share that to somebody, from a different group that may or may not understand all is being Black? You didn't even know. So how was somebody who's a different nationality that didn't learn this, but just, hey, I play video games, I want to try something new. How would that conversation go to somebody of a different ethnicity?
Yeah, I think that conversation would really the focus of it would be learning in an environment where when you walk away from it, it won't be a sense of heaviness.
Right.
And their video games are the only way, in my opinion, one of the only ways to be able to really build empathy, because you can't put yourself in someone else's shoes. I mean, you can think about like how I would feel about that, but as a video game, you really get the opportunity to be the character, to be
Right.
the Black person. Like
Right.
you're going through this journey and this experience as a Black person. And if you do play video games, like you want to protect your character, you want to beat the game, you want to
Right.
accomplish these missions. So as you're being exposed to this different Black historical content, is you're being exposed to it in a way that does make you feel good, and isn't like heavy. It makes you want to cry at night, and it
Yeah.
lets you address it from a place of you can do something about it. Like there's something you can do about it. Like you aren't just watching this woman be whipped by a slave master to know like this is what happened here, but
Right.
you can protect her, you can save her. And that in and of itself, like you're learning, but you're also building empathy because this is your mission. It's your mission to protect her. So you are in experiencing these emotions
Mhm.
as that person versus just being,
So in
reading
so many ways, it's actually a situation that can bring the races together playing this
Mhm.
game, because obviously, again, it gives you a kind of a different look, different lens on some of the issues that our ancestors have gone through. I think this is fantastic. Where can people get the game first and foremost before we go to? I want to touch on Baddie Nerd real quick. I found that interesting, that whole oxymoron title, which is great. But talk about where can people, is the game available to everyone right now on any console, or is it downloadable? Talk about that.
Yeah, so right now the game is available at mountaingaming.org underneath our products. It's a free game demo.
Okay.
It's on PC. So if you have like a Windows PC, you can download it and just run the game and play it. It's not on it's not compatible with Mac devices.
Okay.
So it's only Windows PC. But the downloads still help us towards our downloads goal. So even if you don't have a device that is compatible with, you should still download it to like support us.
Let's get out there, people. Go download. Let's download. We're gonna maybe you know what, we'll talk offline. Maybe we'll put together a contest on that. We'll dive into that later. But yeah, go download this. I know that I'm gonna do it this week myself. And I'll get back to you maybe on phase 2, because we definitely got to have you back. But real quick, let's touch on Baddie Nerd that launches for you the 28th of August this month. What is Baddie Nerd? That name alone, like, now again, I'm a black man, so I know what they say when they mean about the baddies. But Baddie Nerd is kind of now getting to know you a little bit, it kind of represents you from a nutshell, just from a standpoint of being an educated, very beautiful woman, but yet just the topsy-turvy communities and things you went through kind of fits this dichotomy. But talk about what Baddie Nerd is and the launch.
Yeah, so Baddie Nerd is like my personal brand for Aniya. Because I was trying to figure out, like, you know, how I wanted to be a part of social media as an individual.
Yeah.
And I felt like Baddie Nerd exemplified me. Like, most people, especially in college, like, people recognize that I'm pretty before I'm smart. But to me, it's like I'm smart before I'm pretty. Like, I really did I had a 4.0 most of college. Like, and I had people who be like, oh, it's only because you're pretty. And it's like, no, let's compare exam answers. Like,
kind of an insult. Right, exactly. Yeah, it's insulting. Yeah.
It's so insulting. And so most people don't associate like me being a beautiful woman as like being smart. Like they're like on two totally different, ends of the spectrum. And I have little sisters. I have two little sisters, 14 and 13. And I always stress the importance of like, school to them because, and what I realized when my little sister, oh my gosh, I was getting ready to graduate college and she was like, I was like, who's your role model? Like thinking she's gonna say me, She's like, Cardi B. Cardi B? I was so offended. And it's like, what I realized was that what attracts younger girls to, to have role models is like, them being pretty and popular. And most of the women that we see that would define themselves as being a baddie aren't talking about read books.
Right.
And so I felt like I wanted to kind of change that perception that you could be a baddie and a nerd. Like, I love when people ask what I do for fun. I like to learn. Like, I like to read articles. Like, learning is fun for me. Like, so I really wanted to kind of change that stereotype around what a baddie could be. Like, a baddie can be a nerd. Like, you can be both.
I love it.
Yeah.
And where can people get this information on Baddie Nerd? Just how can they get on? I know you said it starts the 28th of August, but how can they be part of the Baddie Nerd community?
Yeah, so the Baddie Nerd content will be on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok.
Okay.
My name is Aniya.Cherie on, I think, all of those platforms. And I'll be releasing content around creating a video game, artificial intelligence. I love AI and I use AI, and so I want to show other people how to use AI. And really just like fitness and holistic healing and health, mental health related things. So if you follow me on any of those platforms, you'll get a taste of all of it.
Well, I can't, you know what, we can do this all day, but we can't. I I love to have you back because it's so many more things I wanted to touch on, but I know, like, obviously, it's with against time. You are a very enchanting individual to talk to. You have an amazing story. It's amazing how we look at people, and we all do. We look at people and we go like, we like to think we can size people up in 10 seconds. But once you have until you have that conversation with somebody, you really don't know what their plight was, what they're going through. And like I said, Miss Watkins, you get a good pair of sunglasses because your future is very bright. Where can people, I know you just mentioned all the things, but again, to reiterate, where can people find you? Get the game again, mention Banner, and just where they can reach out to you and, touch on you and Mountain Game.
Yeah, so Mountain Gaming's website is mountaingaming.org. You can download the game at mountaingaming.org. You can also be linked to all of the Mountain Gaming socials. So on Instagram, mountain__gaming. We're also on Itch, and we'll be publishing on Steam in about 2 weeks. For Batty Nerd, you can find me at Aniya, ANIYA .Cheri, and I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So I have a lot of the content will be on YouTube first, but you'll be able to see like little pieces of it on Instagram and TikTok too.
Fantastic. You said it all, Miss Aniya Cheri Watkins, again, founder, CEO, and founder of Mountain Gaming. Thank you so much for some time for coming here, 950 Extras. We really appreciate it. And we got to have you back because it's just from what you're doing as a business, I know it's a game, but it's so many more layers to it. And we'll love to touch on those layers with you. So again, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Thank you guys for all tuning in to 950 Extras. Again, presented by the 950 Lounge Show by yours truly, Kevin 950 Kev Pryor. And as I always say, if you want to sail big ships, go where the water's deep. Peace and God bless. Take care.